WSOU 89.5 FM. I'm Valentino, and I'm joined today with Billy Bio, new solo record out now. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's great to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me on. I got a lot of love for WSU. It's almost like I feel like you guys are my parents. You know, like you gave birth to Biohazard early in our career. It's the station I listen to whenever I'm on the East Coast, and it's awesome.
Absolutely. And that's so great to hear. We were even talking a little bit before the interview about how, WSU really pushed the living heck out of Biohazard when you guys first came out. And then now, two solo records in, we're pushing Billy Bio as much as possible. It's just very exciting to see just the rock scene doing so well, rock scene thriving.
I got two close friends, Missy Clauso and Jen Kaiser, who were instrumental, great friends and great supporters, and still to have you guys still support is awesome. So thank you very much.
Well, huge shout out to Missy and Jen. Both are fantastic people. I've had the privilege of working with them, and they are phenomenal. But diving into it, new record, Leaders and Liars, available now. You can hear it on WSOU. But tell me what it's like to have your second solo record just complete and out.
Valentino, it's like I look at every band that I ever fell in love with, their second record was the one that really jumps out. It's, you make the first record after you could have 4 or 5 years creating this record, your whole life. But then you go on tour and you get close with each other in the band. You spend time playing those songs over and over again. You're sleeping on floors. You're getting drunk together, throwing up, partying, doing the whole rock and roll thing. And the second record, you only have like a year or so to put together. But it's made off of that heartbeat that you create during your first record. It's like you cut your teeth on the first record. That second record, every band I ever loved, it's the second record that really jumped off. For Biohazard, it's Urban Discipline. It was our most popular record. And then for Billy Bio, it's for sure, it's Leaders and Liars. And it's made off of that same thing. I cut my teeth on the first record, touring around with the guys, and making this record during the pandemic was a challenge, but it came out as that record, that it's the pinnacle record, and that second record determines if you're going to be a third or fourth record. So I'm proud of this record and looking forward to making record number 3 and 4.
That is so interesting to hear you say that, because I've talked to other few artists about that sophomore slump. I don't think I know any band that has had a not successful second record and gone on to have a career,
Yeah. I've navigated all the pitfalls of the music industry. I know what's out there, and I'm just happy to be able to create music and continue to create and have support, because that's just what I do. It's my whole, I kind of look at it like it's my whole life is one expression, and different chapters: Biohazard, Power Flow, Blood for Blood, Blue, Suicide City. All these are different chapters of my life, but I think Billy Bio is more like the umbrella,
Absolutely. And I think Billy Bio, you take all those musical influences that you've had in a lot of your previous bands, previous careers, and I can feel it all on this. It's like a melting pot of like all the different subgenres of rock you've tried before.
Cool, dude. I'm glad you get that. I feel like it encompasses everything, not everything who I am. I'm made up of all my experiences, all the people I've met, all the things I've gone through, good and bad. And it kind of culminates with Leaders and Liars right now.
And now, so we talked a little bit about obviously the pressure of that second record. Did you feel that pressure when you were in the studio? I know you've been in the music scene for so long, but I'm sure you know the importance of that second record. Were you a little anxious getting in the studio on that time?
No, I learned a long time ago, because in the early days of Biohazard, the pressure got to me, and I felt like it affected my creativity. So I learned to deal with it early on. And I just create, and I'm always writing. I'm always working on my ideas. And I don't sit down and say, okay, there's a deadline for this record. I don't make records. I write music, and I create something out of nothing, an inspiration, a little seed that's inside, and it grows. And sometimes it grows fast. I remember writing What Makes Us Tick by Biohazard, and it took me shorter to write the song than the song is, how long the song is. But sometimes songs, like there's a song, the first Billy Bio record, Feed the Fire, the title track, I released it on Bridge 9. It's a small independent release on Bridge 9, and it's a demo version that I recorded with Biohazard. I brought the song in, showed the guys the song, we jammed it, and I happened to record it on my phone or some kind of little recording device, and I put it out later. But that song just wasn't ready. So sometimes they come quick, sometimes they kind of ferment or need to ferment. It's like putting making sauce on the back stove. You got to let it simmer. You got to let it cook. And sometimes it needs a little bit more salt. Sometimes it just needs to cook a little longer. But when it's ready, it's ready. And I have a lot of those sauce pots, on the back of the stove, and they're always cooking. And there comes a certain point, Valentino, where it's like the songs kind of magnetize together. They just click, and they just work together. And even though there's songs that just aren't ready yet or don't fit, that is when the record is formed. So I don't worry about the pressures of a record label or manager saying, hey, you got to get this record out before COVID is over or whatever. That was a crazy thing to go through. But I'm always creating, and there comes a point where the record kind of just writes itself.
Yeah, and I love the way that you're, again, as you mentioned, you're able to just kind of relieve that pressure yourself. And like, I'm just writing music. I'm not writing like, this huge thing. I'm just writing songs right now. And then you eventually just kind of see it pieced together. And even what you said about, obviously, the title track of your first record, Feed the Fire, it's cool that fans can even get to hear that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes a demo will just get, thrown away, and okay, it didn't make the record, so it's gone. But it's cool that it was reworked in another form, in another life.
That's interesting you brought that up. I do, I have a Patreon, Billy Biohazard, but I documented before the record, it wasn't even a record. I just would put my phone down during the pandemic and just record myself playing like different riffs, different on acoustic guitar. And one of those recordings evolves, and it became the first single of the record, One Life to Live, a song I did with Toby Morris from H2O. And I put together all this footage and released in different versions. I didn't know if the song was going to, you don't know if it's going to end up on a record. Like I said, I just focus on writing and creating, taking what's inside and putting it out. In the end, the songs kind of magnetized together. It turned out that song was the first single. Great video. I shot the video on my iPhone. It's a one camera shot. I got the idea from Goodfellas. And it was a pool party during the pandemic. And probably the most rebellious thing that you could do during a pandemic was throw a party, not have masks, kiss, and share drinks with each other, and have a tattoo artist. And that's the video. One camera shot, super creative, but you can check that on my Billy Bio YouTube channel. But I like the I got away from your question, I think.
No, all good, all good. I love hearing these side stories, because it's like a peek behind the curtain. It's like all the stories, because we just hear the songs, but we don't hear the like the cool behind the scenes stuff.
I think it's the behind the scenes stuff that really is interesting. And that's what I share on my Patreon. It's not a money grab. I'm not trying to tell you to go there. You can learn about me on my social media. It's Billy Biohazard. It's free. You ask me a question, I'll answer you either today or tomorrow. But I share a lot of that because everyone's going to know what the song is when your record comes out. But not everyone knows how it was created or what my thoughts were. And I share that on my Patreon. Like I like sharing things like video ideas, titles of the record, artwork for the record. Here's the beginning of this idea for a video shoot. What do I'm thinking about doing this. So I ask questions. You like it? You feel this? And it's pretty cool to bring people in. I think learning, like you said, seeing what's behind the curtain, it's way more interesting. And like Wizard of Oz, when you saw the wizard talking, I don't know if you remember the movie.
Yeah,
that was more interesting than the smoke and mirrors. I like that. I like Kiss, but when knowing them, when they don't have the makeup on, it's more real. I like that side of it.
And that's the thing, is like, as fans of music, we've seen tons of like record rollout processes. We kind of know the basic, okay, 1 single, 2 single record, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all the behind the scenes, like the cool stories, like that's where the genuine, like nature comes in. It's very interesting. Well, another question that I definitely kind of wanted to ask you specifically is, obviously, you've been such an influential figure in the rock scene for so long, since like 1992. How is it like watching the scene grow and change and evolve? There's like 30 years of just like history of watching the punk, that hardcore scene, just kind of like, I don't know, almost become like the juggernaut that it is today.
That's a great question, bro. Thank you for asking that. There's a song on the record called "Our Scene," and it's pretty much the story of how I felt growing up, not belonging anywhere. I felt like I was an outsider. I didn't get along. I got along with people, but I felt like I was just different. I felt like I was an outcast. And then I found the underground music scene, and I finally felt like I was at home. I felt welcome. I felt like I was part of the family. But that song, Our Scene, on the new record, it tells that story. And I think it's something that we all find in common, that we, it's okay to like the Jets, and go to football games, but it's there's something about the guy next to you. Just even though you like cheering for the same team, you just don't really feel like you have that much in common, other than the fact that you're cheering for the Jets. And
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately, I'm a Jets fan. I've never in my whole life, I've never been able to celebrate a giant win, but I'm still a fan. But that aside, um, I think that I got away from your question.
I know you're just watching the scene change and evolve, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's like when you finally find a home, not a home, but yeah, I consider a home. I feel more comfortable, watching a band among peers, and and not just being on stage, but even on stage, I still feel like it's part of the family. That scene, that feeling has never changed. And it was the same when I was a little kid in 1988 to 98, 2008 and 2018, as it's going to be in 2028. When you feel like, wow, there's a great new band, Turnstiles lighting the scene on fire, or Code Orange. That feeling is always the same for people, and it never changes. You fall in love with that belongingness and that family vibe. So I love it. I'm a big supporter of the scene, and people always say, I've heard people say they criticize the scene, or what isn't it suck about this? I'm like, no, it never sucks. It's always great, because it's almost like it's like having a sanctuary where we can call home.
Yeah, and I know so many people, even like myself, that kind of have that story where it's like, you kind of fit in maybe a little bit, maybe there, and then you're in your first mosh pit, and you're like, oh, this is cool, and like just the overall sense of like, you're feeling the music, like as well as
Yep.
listening to it, and even just like, you bring up the community aspect of it. Like I've been to other genres of music, and other genres is great, but I don't like really hang out or stay in touch with the people that I've met at concerts of other genres. Whereas that's why there's always going to be a space for this hardcore and punk scene, is because it's just like, it's the people you meet, it's the environment, it really is everything.
It's all wrapped up into one experience. It's the underground music scene, and it's not just punk rock, hardcore, metal. They all have that element, you know. And I like the fact that Biohazard, I think that we knocked down a lot of barriers, mixing. It was okay to like hardcore, metal, and hip hop, at a time where those walls between those different genres were very strong and very high, and we knocked that down. Pardon my French. We knocked those barriers down, and it was kind of like, oh, I like hip hop, I love Ren DMC and Beastie Boys, but I also love Slayer, and I like a lot Agnostic Front. So you could get along on those kind of common threads, and that was what we created.
Yeah, and I think that like if you're a fan of music, I especially in the rock and metal scene, even today, I see a lot of people that are very, that's not hardcore, that's post-hardcore. And it's kind of nice to even just see a band like Biohazard, and obviously your solo work, Billy Bio, that has been continuously for years breaking down those genre barriers. Another question that I wanted to ask you a bit, obviously, both of your solo records have a title track. Leaders and Liars also has a title track, and I kind of wanted to ask, obviously, in the eyes of an artist, how do you, like, when writing a record, know, okay, this is going to be the one that kind of sums up the record? This is the track that I think captures the entire atmosphere of the album. I'm going to make it the title track. Like, what kind of goes into that thought?
I think that the record writes itself. I don't search for anything. I don't try to focus on a certain style or a certain influence of mine, but I focus on writing one song at a time. And I don't, it's not like a chronological thing too. There's always different ideas brewing. Like I said before, these pots that are in the back of the stove, they're cooking. And when I feel like they're ready, then they become like almost like a finished song. But there comes a time and space and time where the songs seem to magnetize and they jump out. And there was a moment where all those songs kind of jumped off the page and said, yo, We're leaders and liars. That's what we're called. I didn't stop and think about that the first record is a title track, second record is a title track. That's an interesting theme, but I don't put much thought into that. I just let it kind of write itself. But let me ask you a question, and because people always say, what do you mean by leaders and liars? Do you have apartment? Do you live at home, or do you have, wherever you are, do you have a
Yeah,
fire extinguisher at your house?
I do. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you have a fire extinguisher?
Just in case.
In case there's a fire, right?
Yep. Yep.
So over the past 10 years or so, there's been a lot of movies that started with somebody sneezing on somebody, jumping on a plane, and then some doctor saying, "Oh, it's okay. We have it under control."
Yep.
Right? And
Oh
it's
yeah.
never under control. There was a lot of signs. To me, what happened during the pandemic, it was like somebody said, "You know, we don't have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. There could be a fire. Maybe we should get a fire extinguisher here, huh?" Nobody said that. And when the pandemic happened, we all looked at the leaders and said, they were like running around with their heads cut off. And it doesn't matter who the leaders were, because it was everybody. And they said, "Oh, dang, there's a fire. We don't have a fire extinguisher. We didn't plan for this." And so the whole fact that there was no contingency plan, there was no organization, I sat there and dumbfounded going, "You didn't think about this?" I wrote about it with Biohazard.
Yeah.
You didn't stop and think that there would be some kind of crazy pandemic that could wipe out like half the population and put the world in a turmoil where people are spinning out of control and hating each other because they think different, or because they don't want to wear a mask, and they have to wear a mask, or they're yelling at people for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And it divided us so much. We're all human. We're all brothers and sisters. We look different, we talk different, we act different, we like different music, we like different food, but we're all the same. We all bleed red. But my point is, not to get too heavy political, through the whole thing, it's shown and proved to us that our leaders are just full of baloney. Not to curse. I know I can't curse on the radio. I have respect for the station and for the school. Thank you. But it's true. And there's that joke is, how do you know when a politician is lying? Their lips are moving. So that, hence the title of the record, Leaders and Liars. I think the true leaders are the ones that stand next to us, the ones that have their arms around us, the ones that don't ask to be put on a pedestal, the ones that don't ask for your vote, that aren't interested in a popularity contest. They're interested in moving forward with a shared agenda, a shared view, a shared point of focus. And I love that. And every generation has those leaders. And it's the true ones are the ones that aren't asking for your vote. So that's the
Yeah.
meaning.
And that makes perfect sense. I know, like, there was so much just misorganization when this thing first started. And you're right. You even talk about like the divide between everybody. It was crazy. And it just goes to show, in a time where like people needed punk rock the most, they couldn't have it, because like in a time where all of us could have really used a mosh pit or a crowd surf or something like that, we kind of had to go 2 years without it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting looking back. But yeah, no. So, and another question that I kind of wanted to dive in on, obviously, you mentioned, 3 or 4 more solo records are going to be on the way. I know this one has just been out for like a month, but do you have any plans? Are you writing any music for any other stuff?
Yeah. Like I said, there's always that pot of food sauce cooking on
Yeah.
the back burner. I got a lot of pots. We have right now it's all about Billy Bio. I'm super psyched. The record is just came out. It's been done for a while. The pandemic kind of shuffled things around a lot, but I'm psyched to have it out. I couldn't really celebrate as much as I wanted. I thought I was going to be able to celebrate, because the minute it comes out, where they take away the mask mandate, but we're dealing with the situation in Ukraine with Putin, wielding his
Mm,
ego around there, and that's
yeah.
a sad situation. But I'm always writing. I'm always working new stuff. There's new Power Flow coming out soon, and I'm currently working on new Billy Bio. I'm trying to get on tour. I had 2 tours canceled. Hopefully, this next tour isn't canceled, but we'll see. I'm a creative. I'm going to keep creating until I die, and looking forward to sharing what I do and continuing to share what I do.
And now a question that I had about actually the Billy Bio live shows, Billy, is it weird like when you're performing live? I know you have a band behind you, but this is Billy Bio. This is your solo thing. Is it kind of weird to kind of almost have the spotlight on you for those shows, especially after 20 plus years as Biohazard, where it was a little different?
I'm a little different type of person with like an artist like that.
Yeah.
I don't like to have a spotlight on me.
Mm.
I'm not about separation. I prefer to play with no stage on the same level. I don't like that separation.
Oh, that's
But that
awesome.
aside, I love playing live. It's such a cathartic experience for me. It's like you could have the world's worst day, and you go on stage with all this pressure on your head, and you walk off stage an hour later or whatever, and you feel like all that pressure's gone. It's such a release. It's awesome. It's been more than 2 years. The last tour I did was with Agnostic Front, Gorilla Biscuits, H2O, Wisdom in Chains, Cutthroat, Count Time, Street Dogs. It was such a great tour. And we all came home, and a lot of us were sick. It was in February 2020, and then the world shut down. But I can't wait to get back on stage and do that. I haven't played yet. My buddy Toby from H2O has played, and he's like, bro, it's so awesome. It's like it never, it's like exactly how you remember it, but totally different. So
I imagine you're right. That first show back is going to be like a cathartic experience. And I know I've talked to a few other artists. They've even told me that like it feels like your first ever concert again. It's weird, because it's just been so long.
yeah, because you never know how beautiful something is until you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. All those shows we've taken for granted. And even now, like I've been to a few shows since the pandemic, obviously opened up a bit. And I don't see anybody on their phones anymore. I don't see anybody, like it's kind of been almost a reset of the of the rock scene, where people are living in the moment more. It's interesting to see.
It's great to see, dude. And I was hoping that would be it. And I'm happy to hear that, because and that's it. Nobody's like on their phone, because you want to experience it. We spent 2 years like this,
Yeah.
Now it's like, turn it up louder, please. Make my ears bleed, make them hurt.
Exactly. Well, Billy, thank you so much again for taking time out of your day to talk with me. The new record, Leaders and Liars, available everywhere you hear music, and you can hear it on WSOU 89.5 FM. Tune in if you can. Thank you
Awesome.
again.
Valentino, thanks for the time. WSOU, you rock. Thanks for your support. Appreciate you all. Stay safe, and looking forward to talking to you soon. Hopefully in person, because I'm talking to people do Zoom is beautiful and awesome, but I can't wait till I can do face to face.
Yeah, me too. Like, well, again, like once the tours are back in, it's going to be so great. It's going to be very refreshing.